What's up, everyone? We have the aftermath of what I feel like is a pretty successful theory crafting stream yesterday evening. We've got a lot of concepts rolling out of that. You will notice at this top here, we have a lot of Ray. And the thing you need to know here is we did a kind of a simulation test using. So, Wedge and Biggs are the only examples in game of a shared bonus that is a percentage and not, just a flat stat. This test did reveal that Ray, based on Ahsoka's wording, Wedge and Biggs are very old characters. This is a very new character. Anything could happen, right? But based on the precedent, Ray will gain 50% of her own offense, as well as, 50% of her own health. I will say I expect that this will likely work the same way that, her lead and her unique do. So 30% of her health on the lead, 70% of the health on the unique, or 80% if you relegates. That combines to 100% and not, the 70% multiplying the 30% and so on, right? So I assume what this will mean is Ray will effectively gain 150% health instead of 100% like the usual Ray, or 110 or 160. I don't think you're gonna have, like a 450k health Ray gain 50% off of that and just, shoot up to the 700,000, 750, 800. I don't expect that that's going to be the way it works, but the offense, and actually the crit damage. I think a lot of people tend to sleep on the fact that the scariest parts of Rey's kit are not actually her ult. If you're playing JML, if you're playing Eternal Emperor, different story, right? But if you're playing JML, if a character dies to Rey ult, it's fine. You have Jolie. He's going to bring him back. Rey's Whirlwind is the one that stops revives. Rey's Whirlwind can crit. Rey's Whirlwind actually does pretty good damage. 50% offense and 50% crit damage on that Rey's Whirlwind is going to... Characters are going to get wiped. If you don't have your Grandmaster Yoda on point health modded, bye. Like, you will need to have a heal ready to go immediately to not get one, possibly two. I don't even think it's crazy to imagine 3 characters wiped. It is terrifying and exciting all at once. This is something Rey needed desperately right now, because at this exact point in this meta, she wants a lot of health and she wants a lot of offense, and you can't really do both that well. Unless you just have crazy focused god mods. It is possible, but you have to be sniping percent offense, percent health, pretty much everywhere possible, right? This achieves that comfortably. This potentially gives Rey room to build back for speed, or you can min-max even harder. I've been locking in a 13k offense Rey for a while. With Commander Tano, that's reaching almost 20,000. Just disgusting numbers. It's going to be terrifying. But so the Rey benefit aside, if we assume that, the whole point of this being Commander Tano and a Rey team will turn Rey into a more self-sufficient superstar, it means that Commander Tano needs to stay alive. So we have a few flavors of ideas here. Kind of starting at the top, if we just assume that she will also make the bros fantastic as well. You could give both bros excellent speed modding, I think. Damage, crit damage, triangle, offense, cross, most likely. Maybe go offense, triangle, or whatever if you're trying to account for Eternal Emperor. You bring Poe's speed up, you bring Finn's speed up, you get that combo out quickly, and this team will suddenly have just a much more aggressive identity. Much more of the alpha strike, just in your face immediately with damage type of identity. To some degree, by the time Finn Grenade is being threatened, if you're talking like a Watt counter, that's still 45% terminator. So usually the Watt tech or the weapon tech will go before the Finn Grenade ever comes out anyway, no matter how fast you mod them. But there is, to me, at the very least, there is still a consideration angle for that. I don't know how necessary JTR will feel anymore. And, this team does not have a pre-taunt. That also feels a little bit risky. The meta could very easily just shift to make Thrawn fast again. They didn't taunt. That works out for us pretty well, it turns out. We just fracture Rey. It's fine. Her ult doesn't hurt when she doesn't ult, it turns out. Right? So that's angle number one. Angle number two, you will notice there is a Vandor Chewbacca here. If you are wondering why there is a Vandor Chewbacca here, I can tell you right now, it's not the reason you think it is. It's not for the revive. There's two things going on here. So Commander Tano gives a buff called Xian. This is a locked buff, can't be dispelled. Once it's on, it's on. It can only be given to Scoundrel or Galactic Republic allies. And in this team, that means the AI, no matter what it does, no matter what it would ever want to do in its heart, it has no choice but to give it to Vandor. When you give Vandor a buff, he blanket reduces all incoming damage by 25%. And it is technically a 4-turn duration buff. Vandor Chewbacca, you don't really build him to be fast. You don't need to give him any speed at all, really, for all I care. 4 turns will last an eternity for him, essentially. This is the start of something dangerous. This reduces Jedi Master Luke's true damage on his leadership ability. This reduces everything. You can think of this almost as a team-wide lifeblood benefit. That helps for starters. Now, my biggest concern here is if we are reliant on Commander Tano passing Xian to Vandor, let's think of this two ways. We'll look at this from the JML perspective and the Eternal Emperor perspective. JML, F-Lux, unless Ahsoka Tano's got 390 whatever base speed, JML's going before, consistently. And so unless she's got crazy good base speed and crazy good base tenacity, so you could build her crazy, like a Hux style stats, it's not going to happen, right? She will get F-Luxed, she will get ability blocked, and your hopes and dreams don't matter, right? It was an adorable idea. It could have worked, side shoutouts. It's not the point of this build at all, but when Vandor Chewbacca is buffed, he gets 100% counter chance, so he would get Ahsoka some nuke stacks, soft synergy, whatever. It honestly does not matter. It's not why he's in this team. It's just convenient that it works that way. This is where the other idea comes in. You will notice this last team is kind of a weird, mad abomination. These are concepts that I've been sitting on for a while now. Never really decided to pull the trigger on them, but I think Commander Tano, to me, it almost feels like a missing piece here. So, there's a lot happening at once in this team. So Watt will always give tank tech to a character with the tank tag. Vandor Chewbacca is the only tank in the team, so Watt will always just immediately give tank tech to Vandor. Obviously, Vandor literally drains his own protection, it shrinks it down. So in terms of just trying to keep that taunt up, it's going to be short. The regen that happens on it, though, means that this is a taunt that could bounce in and out fairly regularly in some interesting ways. But also, the dynamic that's happening here, dynamic number 2, Rey will always give lifeblood to the light side character, because you can't give dark side, who has the least combined health and protection at that point in time. So at the start of the battle, she is dropping lifeblood on Commander Tano, and then whatever happens from there, assumedly it will probably still stay on Commander Tano, depending on how we've modded her, depending on how that math rings up, and depending on who's getting hit, and so on. You get the idea, though. Then there is the elephant in the room, which is Gideon. Gideon Demoralize. Minus 50% offense, minus 25% crit chance, minus 25% crit damage. And then you add Vandor Chewbacca, minus 25% damage dealt blanket. And then there's a Lifeblood, who is probably going to be on Commander Tano for most of the beginning of this fight, which is what matters the most. How do you kill people? Your best case scenario, Jedi Lessons will still try to just power through everything despite doing less damage. How do you win? Actually. And all of this is to say, too, Rey getting that 50% offense, she is suddenly able to do so much more to just work this team. This is a very stat stick heavy comp. This is a very passive comp. It doesn't need to do much except sit there and stay alive. And in theory, so Watt, he will drop tank tech first at the start of battle. Second, he will give regen tech to the weakest character. So in most cases, this will probably be Commander Tano. Uh, it actually could end up being Gideon, considering Commander Tano probably going to be just on the pure health stack build. We'll get extra health from her leadership. Actually, it probably will be regen tech on Gideon, but that's also fine. You know, for this build, I try to build Gideon fast and tanky. So like, if you happen to have a fast crit avoidance arrow, protection primaries, that type of stuff, a regen tech on Gideon, I would not mind seeing that at all. Because essentially, this entire team is just, you can think of this as layers of obstruction getting in the way of trying to stop you from diffusing every bomb at once, right? You kind of have to kill Gideon to get that demoralize off. Vandor, you know, he can revive Commander Tano. He will be buffed, so the revive should technically be online, but he's also doing like a half taunting thing, but it's like a juggling taunt. So, right, there's a lot happening in this team. It's very weird and subtle, but the final payoff potentially would be Wat Tambor will give the weapon tech to a attacker. And if the regen tech goes on Gideon, then it's a 50-50 between Rey and Commander Tano. If the regen tech goes to Commander Tano, then we're guaranteed the weapon tech on Rey. And with that 50% offense, with that 50% crit damage, a weapon tech on Rey is not going to feel bad, let me tell you. So, yeah, it's definitely a bizarre team. There's a lot happening here. There's also the topic of cost. You know, I do have, like, for example, a version of Rey versus, or Vader versus Darth Revan that doesn't need Wat anymore. I actually do feel kind of flexible with Wat these days. I don't necessarily feel locked in like he must be in another team, but it still feels a little bit ambitious to pre-commit him to defense. But that being said, this team looks pretty good. The numbers behind it are scary. Well, so the defensive numbers behind it were scary, but now we have offensive numbers to go with it. And I'm going to be very curious to see how that team performs. Moving on to the rest of the meta, we have a few ways that she can slot into other teams, right? She's kind of like a C-3PO's character. A few teams are interested in her for different reasons. They kind of change their flavor. Right off the bat, we have Mon Mothma. This is a kind of surprising cheesy nuke setup. There are two Rebel fighters that have scoundrel tags. It is Lando and it is Cara. Lando, not really good character. Cara is actually already part of the standard Mon Mothma team, so great. Fantastic. There's two main things to note here. Commander Tano being in this team means Mon Mothma cannot make a summon. It also means that, you know, she is not a Rebel fighter herself, so she will not assist. So this is why you don't see Pow in this team. Pow's loops are significantly worsened for this in general, which is why we have decided to take up Bistan instead. Bistan is actually, surprisingly, pretty much exactly what this team needs. So obviously he has Frenzy, so that can enable him to loop a few turns, which is actually all this team really needs. We don't need Pow's constant generation over time. This is more burst generation for a little bit, and then it's fine. But also, honestly, more critically, when he activates this ability, he gives the team 20% turn meter, and that just means that the rest of the combo is going to be pretty reliably built out from here. So this does just work. I do have the turn order all planned out. You know, we figured it out on the stream last night. I also have it written down in the patron Discord for now. I'm not going to stick in this video. We'll do a more technical video at some point where we can dive into the numbers there. But this does just work. It is a little bit RNG heavy. Cara grenade can be resisted, can be evaded. So you, at minimum, you know, potency, tenacity aside, you still got the 50% base resist chance, the 2% base dodge chance, as well as Hoth Rebel Scout basic here is still pretty RNG. Now, over the course of this fight, you get a lot of opportunities to activate it. And, you know, we got the Frenzy, and we've got him taking a bonus turn on critting, so you could just build him for full crit chance. It's going to work out. It's still, I would like this to be a cleaner loop. Like with the Beskar team that we'll get to in a little bit is an extremely clean loop. There is zero doubt or, you know, question that everyone will hit full turn meter. This is a little bit, you know, sketchier. The RNG still stacks up to this should be a pretty clean sequence, all things considered. And, you know, Hoth Rebel Scout is also a pretty fast character. But a lot of these concepts like this, we kind of have to bank on assuming that Commander Tano is going to be a fast character. Again, at this point in time, we don't know. She is not in game yet, and we don't have access to her stats yet. The way she's written, I don't think she can afford to be a slow character. I would be shocked if she is 150 or lower. I would like her to see, or I would like to see another stat line on her like Echo. 198, or even honestly, I would love her to be 200 plus. She needs it pretty badly for most of her hopes and ambitions here. So yeah, Kara, we just need to get 6 assists out of her. Commander Tano can swap to her. Everything will be good. This kind of just plays itself. Lando, Mon Mothma's first special, rallies attackers. So Lando maybe is a little bit easier to get all the assist spam on, but overall, this actually feels like a fairly flexible team. It's not too hard to get the Xian stacked up all the way to the nuke setup, and there's a lot of Terminator to play with as well. I think it's got a lot of good potential here. So yeah, Mon Mothma. Again, both of these teams are actually a little bit clunky to talk about in the sense that I'm not necessarily certain about what their matchup tables will change in necessarily. Like, let's say Commander Tano can outspeed Rex or a gas team. You're still dealing with like gas counters. You're still dealing with 5s gaining a lot of turn meter, calling people to assist. It doesn't necessarily sound guaranteed here, right? It's sketchy enough that it's like, what fights will we necessarily potentially win that we weren't winning already? The other elephant in the room I have not mentioned yet is this team comp has no dispel. Without a summon, the summon is this team's main dispel source. So let's say the team could go before Darth Revan, and we wanted to try to do like a bounty hunter style thing. You get the nuke out quick, and then you just annihilate Darth Revan or Malak or whoever. You will be stuck on Set Trooper. Just straight up. It is what it is. The team does function. It does get the snipe loop off. It doesn't have a whole lot of other tools, at least in this version. Again, this is fairly flexible. I do think there will all be other variants of Mon Mothma that can maybe be a little bit more well-rounded, but this is just a quick and dirty, hit the turn meter, hit the assists, get the nuke out, it's done. And speaking of quick and dirty, this Padme team, you can ignore. This is supposed to be Padme in the lead slot. I just have this set this way to demonstrate the turn order. So if you take a Padme team, if you stick Commander Tano at the top of the turn order and Ahsoka Tano at the bottom, you Xian down to swap down to her. OG Ahsoka becomes the top, and then from there, you just special spam. This means that Commander Tano will inherit OG Ahsoka's speed, will be slightly faster because her base speed will be faster, but effectively the exact same turn meter and results. You will have the nuke proc. Very simple team. It does just work. The mass assist with the Padme kick and the GK mass assist call do get you potential extra stacks. You get 1 stack for Xian with the swap over to OG Ahsoka. Then you get 1 or 2, and then you get 1. Then you get 1 or 2. So I think it's a little bit overkill potentially. No, I think we landed exactly 6. So you just kind of do end up hitting your buttons. Again, this also just kind of assumes that the enemy team just never does anything to stop you. Like, if you're trying to take Padme against something like General Skywalker, they increase your cooldowns. You can't really avoid that. That is still just going to happen. So in a vacuum, this nuke setup is a true chain. Like, it is theoretically possible, but like, depending on the team that you're going against, like an Echo Grenade is still going to dispel all of your protection, and then Gas is going to give you the good old cooldown shove. I could take it or leave it. It will be fine. It does what it says it will do. I don't know that it sounds too impactful in the meta, let's say. Moving right along, though, last but not least, this is probably actually the most boring usage of Ahsoka, all things considered, but the impact is actually pretty good. So this idea here is essentially, so we have the normal Beskar loop, right? We have Beskar, Queel, IG-11, and then usually you just shove in 2 other AoE scoundrels. Quill gives everyone turn meter, everyone starts to inherit his speed. Beskar Mando starts recording, gets 5 whistling birds. And then normally you just jam 3 AoE attacks. You get to 20 birds. You gotta wait maybe 60% turn meter, and then you get your nuke off, right? So you take Commander Tano, you shove her in last in the turn order. And then the reason why we have Dengar here is because his AoE does more than 5 hits. In this case, it does 7. So instead of if we just shoved in, Kara or whoever else, you would get 5 birds, 10 birds, 15 birds, and then you would swap. And note that the Xian swap does call assists, but Beskar Meadow is in recording stance. So you don't get anything. He will be 15 bird Bando, and he will have extra offense, but that's still a decent amount of birds you're missing. So that's kind of why I still prefer to have Dengar here. Dengar does do something that pretty much other scoundrels can't, in getting you those extra birds. So you get slightly less birds on the nuke, but 50% offense. That should hold a lot of potential, as well as more impressively, this does mean that the kill shots will happen at Queel's inherited speed, right? So if you mod a Queel at 350, that means that all of those whistling birds are also occurring at 350. So that is respectable. That I can't really say anything bad about that. The main thing I would really point out here is just this team already kind of has very confident matchups. And like, let's talk about like something like Darth Revan, right? So let's just imagine like, all right, we're going for it. Darth Revan has 2 pre-foresight. That's also going to bring down our whistling bird count as well. So we're already cutting down whistling birds, and then we're another -2. So essentially, Dengar actually just loses his entire point for being here because we go from 17 just back to 15 anyway. I still think the extra offense should push this team over the top. Should make those birds just bring that extra punch. So even though you are lesser on birds, it should still, drill through a character. To what degree that's going to be true and to what degree it's not, it's hard to say right now because losing base damage casts always feels pretty bad to me, even if, they're doing 50% extra theoretical damage here. I would still prefer that not to happen necessarily. So Dengar's kind of a band-aid, and also just depending on what team you're planning to take him against. This feels a little bit like overkill, or not even necessarily overkill, but kind of a waste of Ahsoka's potential. It's hard to say there. But yeah, I do think other than that, Queel is a very fast character, very capable character. It won't be bad. I think it's just less interesting than everything else we've talked about so far. And last but not least, there are other teams where she could theoretically work. She can Xian to dark side scoundrels. It's just they won't gain the stat buff bonuses. So Django is a double assister. Bounty hunters have 2 mass assists and also a targeted assist. So boss mass assist, grief mass assist, OG Mando mass assist. That's 6 plus 7 for Ahsoka calling him. Right, that you will get your nuke there, and you would also have a second disintegrate. It's kind of adorable. I usually, if you're in a fight with bounty hunters, getting 1 disintegrate means you've already kind of won. So you're just winning that a little bit harder. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. You could take it or leave it. General Skywalker as well, I feel like you're sacrificing a little bit too much. If you're going to try something like this, I think you would have to mod Rex to be crazy fast, and you would just give General Skywalker high speed, pure damage build, right? We sacrifice a lot for not running full 5.0 first, included but not limited to the counter chance, but also the 50% crit chance is actually deceptively important. People are just kind of used to General Skywalker critting for free. He only has 64% base otherwise. So if you're going to take that away from him, but you also still want him to do damage, that means you're going to have to make up for a lot of lost time in this modding department. You'll lose protection and defense. You lose the stand-up phase at the very end, depending on what you're wanting the team to do. The stand-up phase isn't entirely true. You lose the benefits, the turn meter and can't be critically hit, and the general kit details that make him so effective at being a duelist, including can't be critically hit, the turn meter gain, and the counter chance was kind of what defined that. Already him not countering at that point in time is kind of dooming him, right? Because the lifesteal on those counters is what kept him going, and you just lose that. Other than that, There are some potentially interesting reasons to not want him to counter. You know what? Him countering does feed CLS turn meter, but for the most part, yeah, you could try like a just all out damage 501st build. I think that that team is probably still going to be better off for the most part with just full 501st. Shakti, on the other hand, Shakti clones actually has a decent shot at making good use of Commander Tano. Probably you would put Commander Tano in the Arc Trooper slot. You Xian onto Echo. Shakti is fantastic at forcing characters to assist, whether they want to or not, including a double tap on her second special. You could set up a nuke decently quickly in this team that is just going to be possible. She got the swap, she got the double sys call, retribution as well. If things really were just going to go that direction, it doesn't feel as well crafted to me as the other teams do. So I'm kind of content to just acknowledge that it's there and just kind of move past it. It doesn't feel as synergetic. It would work. The team can get assists, but I don't know that it feels like it has a strong finish to me. And last but not least, CLS. This is actually kind of tough for me to analyze here. Rebels are already a very, very high synergy 5-man package, right? This is the default base team. I don't think people realize just how bad the two Chewies are at general damage output. Mostly I'm talking about when it comes to assists, right? If you take Chewbacca, mine's Relic 6, so take that for whatever it's worth. If you take him and just cram a ton of offense, a ton of crit damage on him, we're gonna make him hit super crazy hard. He's assisting all the time. It's gonna be great. You're gonna get like 30k like max, right? A lot of this team's identity right now comes from percent health damage, and this comes from exposes from C3PO, obviously, but also Chewie's unique. There's 20% of their max health, plus him also applying expose doesn't hurt either, is a lot of what comes into Chewie's damage identity. So when we look at this team and we ask ourselves, 50% offense, 50% crit damage is in no way going to be bad for this team, but it's like, who do we want to start to consider cutting and why? Because 3PO and Chewie also represents extra turn meter gains with the always assisting evasion down with CLS lead as well. We already have kind of an offense share, not nearly as good as Ahsoka's, but it does exist, as well as, there are other small stats like the crit avoidance, protection regen on this move for some reason, like it even needed it. I think the one spot where it might be interesting is Commander Tano's nuke seems like, even though it can't instantly defeat a Galactic Legend, the way it's worded, I get the strong feeling that it might just be an insane damage ability anyway. So it's possible, because Chewie's or C3PO's exposes for the team, if you're fighting something that's percent health resistant, aren't really adding that much anyway. That would be where I see Commander Tano entering the picture here, giving the team extra reach, bringing in some extra finishing power for a super tanky target. It's not crazy talk. 3PO and Chewie would be the best assist target, but he doesn't have a scoundrel tag, so that just does not work. And so that, that leaves Chewie. It's not the fastest assist target either. Let's say 2 from CLS's first turn if you do the stance swap into basic. 2.5 from Han doing second special into third special for 50% turn meter, and then basic. It's still going to take a while. Granted, the team does have more counterattacks, so that could work out a little bit better, but it's not quite as clean as you would like to believe, right? But, we'll at least give that an honorable mention. It is worth keeping in mind, right? I don't think it's how I would like to use my Commander Tano, but hey, a Relegate Han and CLS with 50% offensive crit damage will make some hilarious clips, and I cannot wait to see them. Let's put it that way. Yeah, that covers most of it for now. I gotta lay it down for the team I've put the most work into over time and theory crafting this. This sounds incredibly exciting to me. I have high hopes. We don't know where Commander Tano is going to go at that point. Seems like CG might have plans for her. They hinted at her going in a team. we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I can't wait. Her, I'm so happy that we just have a good character that's fun to think about. So yeah, that'll be it from me on my end. I hope you all enjoy this. Thank you all for stopping by. We will hopefully, at the very least, we'll be chatting it up in Discord. Also, hopefully, we'll just be live streaming for Grand Arena, but also the Grand Arena will be when she gets added into game. So shortly thereafter, we should get a look at her stats, and we'll be discussing what that means. She better be fast for her own sake, otherwise, her fate lies as a stat stick, and that's about it. Which is fine. I love stat sticks. She's a fantastic one. She's actually one of the best, but we'll see. All right, peace out.